put your red shirt on and a brown coat too. Everybody's joining the crew. We got just one drink that we rule them all. Hope you'd remember your towels. Get your Ulu hammers and your Middle guns. A sonic screwdriver or a sword +1. Usually when still it will get you to come. To the pit tank. To the pit tank. The Rocky Mountain pit tank.
Hi, I'm Guy,
Hi, I'm Brent.
and this is Geek Tank, your potpourri-sized podcast and stuff. So today we have both Troy and Chelsea out, and so we brought in Brent, who usually sits over there and talks to us in the comments section. So now I'm going to miss him. So hang on real quick. I'm going to post. Hi, I'm Brent. There. Now I feel much better because I have posted that, because otherwise I'm going to feel left out and I'm going to feel like a solid part of the show is missing because of that. So there we go. There we go. There we go. That works.
Yeah.
So,
works.
yeah. So what we're going to talk about today is 3D printing. And if you have or know a loved one who is a 3D printer, see a doctor immediately. This is important. We're going to talk about it. We're going to discuss this. We're going to discuss 3D printing. Okay. Brent and I both have a common interest in 3D printing. And that is, as you can see, oh wait, that's not my 3D printer. My 3D printer is actually over here. It's off camera to the left. What is actually on camera, I'm noticing right now, is my son's magic cards, which got left in the middle of the table back there. But that's okay. That's okay. This will occur. So, anyway, we're going to discuss 3D printing. First, we should say, what is 3D printing? It is clearly printing on a piece of paper, cutting it out, and
No.
Okay. So what is 3D printing, Brent? Let's figure this all out.
So 3D printing actually is called additive manufacturing because you're adding layers of a product to it and building a physical 3D. For example, it's an airbrush stand. I printed this like 2 years ago, and I'm just now starting to clean it up. So if that tells you anything of how high priority that is. So all it does is it drops the layer at a time over a period of time. And 3D is, well, because it's a 3D object, so it's kind of a generic term that's been used more than additive manufacturing.
Right.
But same thing.
Hi, Donald. Also, Ian, if you want to drop in a comment from time to time, I know that you're a little bit versed in the, printing thing a little bit or something. It's actually totally Ian's fault that I'm even remotely interested in 3D printing. He's the one that got me all into it 100 million years ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Tiny ships.
Tiny ships. Well, that's a thing Ian and I have in common, is the tiny ship thing. So anyway, that's Ian is a buddy of mine and the person in charge of Starch Rec Props and Sabers, which I love his name because it's Star Trek, but it's a thing. Anyway, so he does phenomenal artwork as far as like 3D stuff little tiny ships and phasers and things like that. And actually, that's a good point I just now thought of. I will go over here real quick and I can grab something that was in fact 3D printed, right? Because if I do this, because it's from Ian's printer, it's too big to and what? Harder to dodge. Oh, right. Tiny ships. They're easier to dodge asteroids. So this is, of course, a Discovery era phaser, and this is all 3D printed, and it's it's got the removable phaser 1, which if you don't fuss with it enough, it won't remove like it's supposed to.
Watch the guy breaks it on accident.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying not to do. So, is break it on accident because it is cool. Anyway, has a removable. You'll have to trust me on the removable phaser 1 then. But this is exactly what we're talking about. Getting close to this, you can kind of just barely see little ribs in it, and not too much because actually Ian did all the work on this, and he's really, really good at sanding and cleaning it up.
Mm-hmm.
You can barely see the little ribs in there, and it's because this was printed one little layer at a time. He did this one on what we call the that's PLA, right?
Yes.
The one with the. So there's 2 types of printers. There's FDM and there's PLA. PLA printers are what you kind of see whenever you think of your classic 3D printer. It has a filament that's on a spool. It runs up to the top of a head, and the head comes down and just goes bzz, 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 on a plate and goes back and forth around the plate until it builds the thing you're looking for. And of course, I say, it's like bzz, bzz, and really it goes.
It's really slow. Yeah.
It takes like 3 hours. Yeah. So the other one are the resin printers, or the PLA printers, which is the ones that you can see behind Brent.
Those SLA printers.
So those are SLA?
Yeah. So resin, as what you see here, the red one behind me, that's an SLA printer. The other style that you're talking about is FDM.
FDM.
Yep.
What's PLA?
PLA is the plastic that it
plastic. Uses. Okay. I'm good with this. I'm good. Mm-hmm. I know we just have, the one that has the gunk, and then there's the one that has the long plastic. Stringy thingy.
Yeah.
That's how I remember them. Stringy thingy and gunk. So resin printers then, which is the one I actually am into, print really fine detail. Doesn't have the striations in it. However, it's limited to about this big. The plates are not that big. Because what you really need to have. Hello, Rebellious Pastry. Welcome to the show. If your prints are, what you've got is you've effectively got a little pool that you fill up with resin, and then you hit it with a UV light, and the UV light hardens the resin, and it hardens it only in one specific spot. So what you do is you put a pool of resin in there, it drops the platform into the resin, and then it hardens sections of it in little, like, if you imagine sort of like an MRI machine does, the MRI takes your head and slices, like that. It's going to do the same thing and print your head in slices until you have pretty much your head. So that's what we're doing here. So that's the thing. Which do you think is better then between the two of them?
It's really hard to come down to which is better because it really depends on what you want to print. Like for individuals like yourself, you want to print small ships. Me, I print small mechs for friends for a BattleTech game, and also I print terrain. So I actually have both. I have an FDM and a resin printer or SLA printer.
Wow.
My FDM is actually in a box still because I haven't spent the time to put it back together because I haven't had the need to. While my SLA printer, you can see behind me, is up and running, and it actually stopped the print about an hour and a half ago. So I'm just waiting for everything else to finish up so I can start another print and get that going. So
yeah, I
just
think. Hang on real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Okay, never mind.
Ian?
No, Chelsea. She just was kind of somewhat unclear there.
Oh.
She's having family personal issues right now. And so she was messaging, and I was like, does this mean you want to join this show and talk about printers? And she's like, no. And I'm like, okay, because that was very unclear. Which is all right. It's always something. So, yes. So, and I think that's kind of where we are too. For example, our engineer, Kevin,
Mm-hmm.
is trying to get a I just lost it, thready thing printer.
FDM.
So, yeah, FDM. The FDM printer, because he wants to make Mandalorian armor.
Mm-hmm.
Which that makes sense. You can't really print much of a Mandalorian helmet in a target this big.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like a lot of people who do cosplays or such, they tend to go with that FDM because you can take this plastic here, sand it down ultra smooth because those layers and everything, the plastic's really actually pretty thick in there. It's about 2 millimeters thick.
Right.
So it can be pretty thick on that, and you can sand it out down to a very smooth finish, or you can put like a filler in and sand it down that way, and that way you can actually make it look like straight up metal. And those, there are some groups out there within the Star Wars universe,
Like the 501st.
Yeah, they hand make their armor, but a lot of it too is when I first looked at them a couple of years ago, and I was thinking about joining, they didn't like the 3D printed armor as much. I don't know if that still holds true now, because
I
it's
guess
just
it depends on how well you do your 3D printed armor.
Yeah.
I mean, if it becomes screen accurate, I guess they don't really. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, as my cat just attacked me for no reason.
That's what he does. Mine's thinking it too. He just hasn't gotten up here. He hasn't figured. I did for a while have the skirt around the table pulled up around on top of the table because he was getting under there and attacking me through it. And so I was like, well, no, we're not doing this. So, and yeah, that I can totally see that being a thing. And like how legit is the armor, if it's bumpy and ridgy.
Yeah.
When you think about like the Mandalorian, it's all shiny, it's super reflective. So you'd have to really get in there and sand it down and then fill it and then sand it and then fill it and then sand it in order to get it to the point where it looks like chrome. But I think if you got it to the point where it was shiny and chromy, I don't know if the 501st would say, well, after all that sanding and filling, I could see that being a thing. But, I could also see people trying to get into the 501st with, they just printed it and stuck it on their head, and it's just all bumps and ridges all the way down. I did the work, I've seen.
When it comes to FDM, there's a lot of different things. Even then, here, and I'll show you a picture, or I'll put one up from a snipping tool, and you can share it, Guy. FDM is extrusion. It pushes that material out. This is actually a house that was 3D printed, and they used a form of concrete to do it. And so you can see the ridge lines on there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where that comes from, is because it's FDM, and it puts that layer by layer by layer, and the one will dry above it and so forth as it goes up, before it even gets to that, because it takes so long to get across.
Yeah, I can imagine that takes frickin' forever, because you've got to wait for layer 1 to harden before you put layer 2 on it.
Yeah.
Talk about concrete, and it's like dealing with concrete, it's got to harden all the time. But then again, think about it. If you get to a point where you've got fast curing concrete, you could theoretically just put the little robot down and it just sit there and and you have a house in like 6 hours, you know?
Yeah. And that's what they're theorizing that they're going to do when it comes to the Mars base. One of the first things they're going to send up is a 3D printer to print buildings and such
Yep.
for
Yeah.
it. So
Some kind of 3D printer that just roams around like some kind of giant mechanical spider.
mhm.
Nobody will freak out about that.
No one will question that at all.
Nobody will question that. That won't look weird.
Nah.
So, but yeah, I mean, that's definitely that methodology, that technology is evolving quickly. How long has printing been around? 3D printing. How long have we been dealing with it? I think.
In the mass market, like the average person, you and me doing it, it's been around, I'd say about 4 to 5 years to where it
Okay.
got to the point that you and I are able to afford it.
Yeah,
Okay.
because it came out, but it was $3,000, and that's not.
Yeah, and it's been out for a lot longer. I remember TV shows. One of them in particular, Numbers, from the early 2000s. This is talking almost 20 years ago, where one of the characters, she did a 3D printed knife or sword as a demonstration of what the technology can do when it comes to weapons.
Right.
And that's one of the catch-alls when it comes to 3D printing nowadays. That's one of those dark gray zones when it comes to it, is
Right.
the whole weapon printing and such. So,
Which makes sense.
yeah.
But,
Does make
but we're
sense.
still talking about a relatively new technology.
Yeah. The biggest name that really kind of kicked off the whole consumer market was MakerBot guys. Don't quote me on that, but that's what I've seen more so of. It started off as an open source project, and people would build their own MakerBot style 3D printers and and put in design changes or how to better enhance the device. And over time, it came to the point where they went private, so they're technology, but it was still out there enough that other companies were able to do that and also build upon it too. Nowadays, you see 3D print companies pop out almost about once a year, maybe once every 6 months to a year, of different types of printers and such too. So,
So looking it up, looks like our first 3D printer showed up in 1983
yeah.
by a guy named Chuck Hill. He was talking about rapid prototyping, which is interesting. But a Japanese lawyer was the first person to file a patent for the technology. The authorities denied his application because Hideo Kodama was the name of this Japanese lawyer, missed the 1-year deadline and so failed to file the full patent requirements on time in 1980. So, as Dr. Kodama was a patent lawyer, this blunder was both embarrassing and disastrous.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So, that became sort of a thing. So, it looks like in 1980, Dr. Kodama came up with the idea and failed to patent it.
Mm-hmm.
In 1984, stereolithography, I remember that, was taken up by a French team, but was abandoned. In 86, Chuck Hill took the stereolithography, and then in 87 was the very first SLA machine.
Mm-hmm.
Then 88 was the first SLS machine. Huh. That's interesting. So yeah, it was in its adolescence until 2010.
Mm-hmm.
Is what they call it. And so its infancy was 1981 to 1999. The adolescence was 1999 to 2010. And now it's in its adult stage. That's kind of fascinating. So,
Yeah, and there are some things that still within 3D printing, and I've kind of touched on those before, is still that gray zone, as I like to
Mhm.
phrase it as, because of the technology and what it can do too. So it's really iffy when it comes to certain things, and especially your intentions when it comes
Right.
to printing too.
Right. We're going to be making a much more detailed version of my ship because I want to make one that's good for printing. Right. So
Yeah,
that
there's a
you
guy right here. There's a
you're
3D printer.
asking
That's
for
really,
that ship design.
yeah.
I also so that's there's two sides to this sort of as well. I mean, there's also the making models for the intention of printing. That's a different methodology.
Yep.
And I'm
3D
noticing
design.
that, yeah, 3D design also kind of you can't you can't cut corners. A robot or droid? Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, yes,
Yes. There's a lot of people have made actual R2D2 droids
yeah,
using 3D print tech because
yeah.
it's just so expensive to buy the parts. So
They'll build
they,
they'll build the parts in the 3D printer. Yeah,
mhm. I
which
know I've
totally
attempted it a couple of times myself.
I like the attempted part.
Yeah, it just got to the cost value, just cost and time I didn't have. I didn't have
Right.
the money nor the time. Now with my current job, I may be able to have the money and the time to do it, but give it a couple more months down the road first.
We are that's Kevin's goal is to make an astromech droid in green and black and call it G33K, the Geek Tank droid. So that's what we will be doing at some point down the road here. So we will have our Geek Tank droid that'll go with us to conventions and probably just carry broadcasting equipment with it. Knowing our luck, it'll have the little air launcher and it'll launch a microphone, which will end up crashing to the ground somewhere and breaking into 1,000 little pieces. It'll look awesome, and
that
you'll
or
ruin a microphone on it.
that or you'll have it launch and you try to get someone in a Jedi costume at the perfect distance where they catch it
Right.
for an interview. Yeah.
What we should do is 3D print a microphone. So it's just plastic and a solid block microphone, and then paint it, and then you do the switcheroo, right?
No,
You
you
like
put the
stand
Bluetooth
there and you
little
catch the
microphone in
plastic
there.
one, and you go, "Hi, I'm Guy."
No, what you do is you put the Bluetooth little headset in there and have the mic turned on for it, and there you go.
Right? Because then it just cushions it.
Yeah.
So if it does land on the concrete floor, it just goes bang, 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 bang. Because nobody's going to catch it. They're all going to it's going to be like in the comedic. This is Geek Tank. What'll happen is it'll come down and you'll see everybody go, whoop, and you'll go bark, 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 bark. I mean, It's Geek Tank. Nothing ever works like we want it to. So.
And then you just got to use a generic term. We'll fix that in post, folks.
We'll fix it in post. We do what we can. We do the best that we can. Oh man.
Now I can't wait to see that at a convention. Yeah, now I can't wait.
Right? I mean, because that's totally what'll happen. Is we will take. So yeah, the hard part there is, of course, then we still have to put in motors and things like that, and all of the. And we actually kind of want to build it so that you carry a fob with you, and it knows to keep within a distance of the fob, and and then tries to keep away from people and beeps if it gets too crowded.
Yeah.
And sits here and beep, and stuff like that whenever it gets too crowded around it.
I just go with the Xbox controller and have someone walk behind it, and there you go.
Yeah, but then you got somebody standing there, and it looks pretty obvious. But if it's got a fob and it's just tracking the fob, that's kind of cool.
Well, if you can keep them far enough way back, because people will see an R2 type of astromech droid, they'll keep their distance for the most part. So, minus the Leias, where they'll be like, "Can I get a photo with it?" and try to do the whole "You're my only hope, Obi-Wan," and pop in the card and all that.
Yeah, that's stupid. Nobody would ever do that. It's dumb. and stuff. Why would you do that? Anyway, yeah, so there's that.
Now I'm putting thoughts in the guy's head. Ooh.
Right, yeah. No, that's a dumb thing. I would never do that.
He will, folks. He will. Don't worry.
So anyway, so other than that, let's see what else. What other kind of destructive stuff could we possibly get into?
With 3D printing, it's
With 3D
anything.
printing. Anything could occur.
Yeah. Really, you can almost print just about anything nowadays. As far as many Mandalorian helmets I've seen come out, Star Trek, Star Wars stuff. It's really, a lot of people say this, but your imagination really is the only limit when it comes to it.
Yeah.
But it's also how much time do you want to spend in there to design your objects yourself? Because it's more than just going out there and downloading a file, even nowadays. Yes, there are websites for that.
Sure.
And they do decent job, but really when it comes to 3D design, it's also, or 3D printing, as soon as you get into 3D printing, you tend to start getting into 3D design too. So you can design your own stuff. And that's where you get into Blender or Fusion 360 and several of the other programs out there that allow for that 3D design builds.
I mean, I'm just saying, but I'm a Blender guy.
Yeah. That's why I mentioned Blender first.
Yeah, well, Blender's cool, though. I mean, if you get used to it. Trouble cat. Where are you?
And there is a steep learning curve for it as well as 3D printing, too. So
I have some problems with Blender because of that. I mean, there is you're saying a steep learning curve. There definitely is a steep learning curve. It's kind of rough. I mean, it's really rough, actually. There's no kind of about it. It's pretty rough.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It is.
So
I haven't learned the 3D design myself. And the reason is because I don't have a computer powerful enough to truly do it correctly.
Right.
Like, I can do it, but it's going to take longer in the long term to render those items than it is just for me to, hey, guy, can you design X for me?
That's fair.
Or go to the website and just find what I need and download it and throw it off on the printer. So, but yeah.
That makes sense. That makes total sense.
Are you looking for the Astromech Droid plans now for your 3D printer?
Maybe. Why would I do that? That would be weird.
I think I have the link still. I'll send it to you after the show.
Okay. I mean, what? Well, I mean, like that's the thing to think about, right? It's like, okay, so the Astromech printer files. How would we do that? I mean, because you'd have to do half the hemisphere than the other half of the hemisphere, because it really isn't even on the what's its printer. It's not like big enough to handle that, right?
Yeah, for FDM, they can get pretty big. A buddy of mine, he's actually out there by you in Colorado. He has a FDM printer, and it gets pretty large. It's about 10 inches space for him. Now, he couldn't do a full dome on there, which is fine. Sometimes it's just easier to just buy the dome instead of print it. But there are 3D printers out there in general that are massive, and yeah, they can. But if you're going to print something that big, it's just easier to go ahead and commission that individual print.
Fair.
There are companies out there that do it, and they'll charge you just the cost. There's your droid, by the way.
Thank you.
One of them. But it's you can just be like, yes, I need this type of part and ABS plastic, and they'll print that off for you, ship it to you, and 9 times out of 10 it actually comes out better than what you can print at home, because these are the guys who do it all day, every day, nonstop too.
Well, and I think that's part of the other thing about this that we kind of should bring up. It's not a perfect science. It's not like it's like your printer used to be, like the very first laser printers. Remember those back in the day? First laser print. You'd hit print and it would just print a bunch of black smudge and they would be like dusty and you'd be like, what happened? And you'd have to dial it in and crap like that. And printers are like that here as well. I mean, that's what these 3D printers are too. We've got to have to dial them in.
Mm-hmm.
And that is definitely a problem. So
so 3D printing on its own is a pretty large curve. And the difference between SLA and FDM is some massive stuff.
Right.
SLA is, like you said, it's just essentially a UV light on a plate that shines through, and it's kind of like your LCD monitor where you have the backlight that shows through, and depending on the color or whatever, it'll open and close slots, and that's how the light gets through. With FDM, it's a lot more. That's why I like SLA a little bit better. FDM, you spend a lot more time dialing in your printer, like getting it to that perfect leveled height, making sure nothing rubs there or bumps it. Also, your heat control, your stepper control, how high and how fast it moves across the board. You can get into really fine details when it comes to an FDM printer. And a lot of the guys, one of my friends, Matt Mason, he does 3D designs for resins. And he actually has been able to get his FDM printer to almost print at resin quality because he has it dialed in so much. So there are people who are able to do that. And it takes a lot of time. And the more time you put into it, yet the better quality you're going to get out of it too. But then again, once you're done with that one individual print and you pull it off and you start your next one, you have to readjust and do a couple of other things to make sure that just peeling off that plastic, just literally taking this, peeling it off, could have moved the plate or adjusted the plate. You don't know it, but it could just do it just enough that when your next print starts, it can get all the way through and be perfectly fine. But over time, after a while, it will actually make it fail because of the minor changes that can happen between A and B prints.
Right. So that actually is important to me because I feel like I've been kind of scared of that. Oh no. I was hoping that picture would never show up. Never.
I was waiting for it to show up.
It took freaking forever for me to find it.
I was waiting for it. I was also waiting for the one with the story that came out, a little girl that dressed up as Jen Erso, and every Leia she met, she gave Death Star plans to. I always thought that was cute.
Oh, that's adorable, but I didn't do it.
Yeah.
I, on the other hand, was stupid enough to walk up and try to get the Death Star plans to the RT unit. Because that's me, and that would definitely be a thing I would do.
Of course.
Of course. So, and the reason why I say that is because one of the things that's been kind of plaguing me is I don't want to make a whole bunch of crappy prints and, have to dial it in and crappy prints and dial it in. And so you're saying that that's not as likely, although I'm sure it still occurs. Mm-hmm. But that's not as likely with a resin printer is what you're saying.
Yeah, well, with a resin printer, you can pretty much plug and play that. And I have 2 build plates for mine. You can actually probably make out both of them. You can see one like right here. That's
Mhm.
one build plate, and then the second one is actually right back here, right there. You can
Okay.
just make that one out. And so if I'm in a full-on production mode, I have those build plates is what's leveled, not the actual resin tank and all that. So
Right.
I have it set so then that way when it goes in, it automatically stops and starts doing its thing. And once it's done, I can just pull it off, put the second one on, and clean up the first one. And while the second one's printing, the first one's cleaning and curing and doing everything else for it.
Right. The
So
build plates on these things come out pretty
yeah.
easily. They've just got this one lock on them. And then my build plate used to have a ball joint in there. But then I bought this aftermarket piece right here, which allows me to lock it down so that I can get the exact location of the positioning on the bed and then lock the wheels down on it so that it won't move, because the ball joint starts to fail.
Yeah.
And that's part of one of the problems with these guys is that once that ball joint fails, then as soon as the print starts, the stage comes up and then tilts, because it'll offset and then it'll weigh to one side. So as that build plate starts to come up, it'll start building one layer at a time. And that's another difference between the two. The string ones build upward from the plate like this. The resin ones build the other way around because they're in a pool of resin and stuff like that. So
top to bottom, comparative bottom to top. Yep.
So if the stage, while it's building, if the plate tilts, it'll keep building this way, and your little object will suddenly do this, and go sideways. So that's one of the things. I of course out on Reddit, I go to r/3D printing, and one of the things they love to show is spaghetti. They tried to print something, and the printer went along, and then all of a sudden it just spooled out, string all over the place, and it becomes this clump of string that looks very much like, spaghetti.
Yeah, and if I had my Octoprint, so when it comes to FDM, and I always recommend this every time someone's like, "Oh, I got a extruder printer." It's a program called Octoprint. It's open source, so it's free out there. You install it onto a Raspberry Pi, and you can actually take videos of your prints. Sorry, it's not for SLA. Sorry, guy. But you can configure it to take pictures, and if you do 3D printing as kind of like a sideline biz, you can kind of set it up to do things like, oh, this is how much it cost me to print it, so I'm going to do this as well for it, and that type of thing.
Now, Dustin's apparently here as well, but I can't see him in the posting over here, but Donald's replying to him. So hello, Dustin.
Hi, Dustin.
Speaking of Dustin, since he's here, it's about that time for us to tell everybody that Geek Tank is sponsored by Kieran Games, Geekway Homes, Shiny Garden, which just had WhimsyCon, but next one is now going to be Hexacon in February. Is it February of 2020?
January 14th to January 17th.
There we go.
I'll be there.
And your mom. So, and actually that's like a cool thing, because Dustin also, one of the things Dustin wants is, once we resume our Star Trek game, he wants me to print out the ships that we're using. So, which I'm all about, because it'll mean printing out ships.
Yeah. I'm still waiting on you to work on my character there, guy. Give him a cigar and...
Oh, yeah, I was working on that, wasn't I? I got sidetracked by it.
It's okay.
All we need to do really is just remember to do it on a show one morning when I'm like, wonder what I'm going to do today. And you could say, you could always work on my character. And I'll be like, oh, yeah. because I've gotten so much better at Blender sculpting now.
Yeah.
I didn't realize there was when I was doing the work on your character the first time, all I could do was push and pull on the mesh.
Mm-hmm.
Now I know how to subdivide. So whenever I cut a line through your mesh, it can subdivide the mesh inside there instead of making it just stretching triangles to make, clothing lines and stuff like that. It'll add triangles in there to add complexity, which that's important. I've been 3D modeling since the 90s, the mid 90s, early 90s. We've been working in 3D modeling. I had 3D Studio back in the day when it was just 3D Studio, no Max, just minimum. So 3D Studio minimum. And I was working on that. And so, Blender is a pain in the butt, but you know what? I've been modeling for a long ass time. So really, it's not that hard to kind of just figure it out and get it to work.
Oh, yeah. That's the key word. Get it to work.
Yep. Get it to work. So, the thing is, I'm a tiny starship guy. Like, here are some tiny starships. Behold the tiny starships, right? And, like, I even like the Eagle Moss ones. I love the obscure Eagle Moss ones. Like, this guy is a Tellarite ship. Very, very obscure. So, the thing is that my love for tiny starships started in the 80s when FASA put out the Star Trek role-playing game, which I actually have over here. Well, at least one of them. The main one's downstairs, but I've got the Starship Combat game, which is part of it, and stuff like that. Well, the thing is that they made the miniatures for it, and they had these beautiful, beautiful miniatures where they expanded card markers. Yes, that'd be cool. They expanded out the movie universe, which I have always felt was my favorite generation of Star Trek, because it's the one that, is the one that really was kind of the era that I got into. I was watching TOS as a real young child, but the movie era was really where, like, I was a teenager and all the movies were coming out, and it was like a game changer in my world. And all of these beautiful ships that they made for the pewter miniatures, and of course you can't find them anymore. They've long since gone out of business.
Yeah.
But there's a guy on Thingiverse who has been making the minis again for print. And so for the first time since 1984,
Guy got his mini ships.
I will be able to get all the stupid FASA minis that I have ever wanted.
And then some.
Yes. Like, I'll be able to get like 4 or 5 Locknars, and I'll be able to get like modified Locknars. And I don't know what it is with me and my half-dish ships, my love for the half-dish ships. I mean, I guess part of it is the Intrepid, but I've always loved the Intrepid. But yeah, the half-saucer guys. So.
Oh, you didn't see the post I put up a few days ago where a guy designed an entire Imperial Star Destroyer?
Yeah. I did see that post.
And you can buy that whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah, although I do have, in my collection, I have, Star Destroyers already bought from, like, when it comes to, like, Star Wars, it's not hard to get Star Wars ships.
Oh, yeah, no.
They're easier to get, and there's still quite a few of them out there on the market, so it's not as difficult. I mean, even if you're just talking about the old Micro Machines, Oh, Battlestar Galactica. Now, see, there is a critter. Because Battlestar Galactica, the Battlestars themselves are gorgeous and always have been. And even when you talk about this, the base stars.
The original base stars, yeah.
Yeah, the original base stars. But yeah, the pride and joy of Battlestar Galactica is the Vipers. I even really like the old Viper Mark Ones from the new Battlestar Galactica. Those were pretty cool. They kind of took the elegance of the old Viper and just made it into a newer Viper that was more slick. But I did not like the Cylons because really, the old Cylons were classic.
I don't know. I like the new ones. I like the new ones. I did. I gotta admit that. They looked mean.
The new base stars.
Well, the new Cylon ones, they look mean. In comparison.
Yeah, they look mean. I did like that when they did Razor and things like that, they brought back the old Cylon Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
That was cool. I also liked that they kept kind of the generic A-Wing effect for the newer Star Wars. Because the A-Wings were... And I got blue finally for my A-Wings. Because the A-Wings were always red or green in the old series. So it was like, really... A-Wings were my favorite. They were the best. But yeah, that's the thing is over here in this, my collection over here, I've got the bonsai ships, whatever. I have some obscure ships over here. I have some really obscure ships. So I'm looking forward to printing the ones that I don't have obscure ships of. In here, I have ships that people won't readily quickly recognize.
Which one is that?
Right? Probably easier to recognize if I give you this one, too.
No.
No?
No. Oh, yeah, that's the dropship from Aliens.
And that's
Aliens. Oh, okay. You don't see the Soraka that much in there.
No, you don't. And this is the Narcissus. Or, I'm sorry, this is Nostromo.
Yeah.
And this is the Narcissus.
I thought it looked like the Nostromo, but I didn't want to hazard a wrong
You didn't
guess.
want to look stupid, and I admit that.
No, I didn't want to get the wrong guess.
Yeah, I don't blame you on that one. The black hole, now there's one.
Ugh.
That's definitely scary. Here we go.
Yeah, Firefly.
A little Serenity class. I mean, I've got like all kinds of stuff. I like this guy.
That's the Raider from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Guardian of the Galaxy. Yep, I got all kinds of stuff, man. Because this is my jam. Little teeny ships. So, anyway, the ships from Dune were different. They have some beautiful ships in Foundation.
Oh, yes.
And I'm digging Foundation, and so I'm like, well, I know what I'm printing now is Foundation ships.
I can't wait for the new Dune movie. That's the biggest one I'm waiting on.
Yeah. In Firefly, I only have, only have the Fireflies and then the one Trans-U. One that flies without containment. So it's an old Trans-U flying without containment. That's lots of Chinese. That's not right. And then there's this guy. Still one of my. Yeah, there is something wonderful about the Arcadia. No matter which way you look at it, the Arcadia is a beautiful ship.
Don't get me started on Babylon 5 there, Donald. Oof.
B5. Yeah, now B5 is. Oh, we got to talk about B5. That's a
Oh
show.
yeah, they're redoing it.
They're rebooting B5.
They're redoing the whole thing. They're not only just rebooting, but they're going to redo all of it.
Maybe Mbari. Some Goron. Goron. That's the other thing is like I don't have all of the ships that came from this set like Ian does. Ian has a lot of them, or he has all of them, but like he has some shadow ships, and I don't have shadow ships. But I think the thing that was, and I don't have a white star.
I want the White Star.
Because, right? They just simply did not have a white star. So that was never made for the Babylon 5 set of micro machines. So I never got a white star, and there never was one. So that's another thing on my to print thing, but Star Furies.
Oh, they have
Like
it on
this is the
Thingiverse.
first and second season Star Fury. So it's like not the one with the extended nose.
Mm-hmm.
So yep, ships are a thing. I love my ships. My wife has already said that at my funeral, all of these guys are going to be in little like containers. The
She's just going to
expectation
throw them in the.
is that everybody takes a ship to remember me by. I'm okay with that. That's fair. That's totally fair. So 3D printing, it has a lot of potential, and it's very fascinating. And I really am excited to get started on prints. And
I'm actually surprised you haven't done a lot.
Well,
there, buddy.
I have been very concerned that I don't have all the tools, right? Like I don't have a bucket to wash it out, wash off the resin, things like that, like little things that it won't take long for me to fix, and I just somehow don't remember to fix it when I'm at, wherever. I've got this. I've got a run that I'm putting together for the fumes, so that the I can vent the fumes out the door, but I haven't put it up against the bookshelf over there. And, little things.
For my wash guy,
Yeah.
this is all I use.
Oh, okay.
It's just a tub. This is isopropylene alcohol in there at 99%, and the yellow one, this one, that's actually a wash curing station. So
okay, so I wanted to get
there.
I wanted to get a wash curing station, but then didn't.
Yeah, when I got that one, it was like $150.
Yeah,
through Amazon, and ever since I got it, it's been the greatest thing ever because I don't have to sit there and put my minis in the window and let the sun bake it and do a thing to finish the cure, and I could just keep going on all my prints and not have to worry about it as much.
Yeah. So. Well, the good news is what I am that my takeaway from you at this particular time was, if I don't have all of this extra stuff set up, then that means that I will only print one thing and then go through curing it, and then print one thing and go through curing it, which is what I'm going to do in the very beginning anyway, because I'm going to go, did I do it right? And examine everything, and everything will have to go through slow steps. So I'm not going to be printing 70 minis in a day. I'm going to be printing one and then going, did I do it right? Maybe I did it wrong,
Where are the defects? What can I do to adjust, and the timing and all that? Yeah.
So my takeaway is maybe I shouldn't be so worried and just going ahead and print something over there to see what happens, and then screw with it and go, I don't know what happened. Because my plan was, I've got this, one of the drawbacks of my office is that it only has the sliding glass door. But one of the pluses of my office is that it's got a sliding glass door. I mean, I can just go on ahead and open the door, and there's a patio out there, and I can just set the minis out on the patio, and they'll be in the sun all day long.
Yeah.
In direct sunlight, happy as a clam. And this is Colorado. We get 4,000 zillion days of sunlight every year. And
I miss Colorado.
Right? We miss having you here. So that's cool. Well, we did manage to do this and talk for, an hour on 3D printing. So if you were to suggest a 3D printer for people, what would you suggest?
It depends on what they want to do. If they want to do SLA, the resin printer.
Like we want to make minis because we're mini people.
Yeah, if you want to make minis, the Igloo, and you're worried about cost, the Igloo series, what I have, this guy right here, this is actually the Igloo Mars 2. And that was about $250. Really not too bad. It does great work. You've seen some of my prints in the past, so yeah. And they work well. And it does a great job, and it's just, there I go. And it's pretty much plug and play. As soon as I had it leveled, it was ready for production. Sorry, as a cat's playing on my foot because of cable drop.
No, it's all good.
And then if you want to go with FDM, and because you want to do more terrain and larger items, I really haven't heard anything bad about Creality Ender.
Reality?
Yeah, Creality's Ender 3 series. They've come out really well. A friend of mine, he has the Creality Ender 5. So it's a bigger one, and it's actually enclosed because he's like you and me. He has cats.
Yeah.
So
enclosed is good. Yeah. And actually, we've got that problem with Kevin as well because Ivy will attack it, I'm sure, as well. I'm actually kind of glad that I have a Photon S, and it's, I've been worried a lot about, attacks, but it's encased. So that's good too.
The biggest thing with resin that you have to worry about is if you have that lid off, mine's red right here.
Yeah.
That lid, when it comes off, hair getting inside that resin tank. I had a dog, a husky mix.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And that was the one thing I was always like, okay, I got to open this. So, Tommy, get out of my room. Let the air settle for 5 minutes so that no hair's floating around. And then I was able to open it, pull stuff out, close it, do what I needed to do. So, but yeah.
Yeah, I that's one thing that's good about George. He's a very slick cat. His hair doesn't come off easily. Resin is fun but easy to mess up.
It can be toxic too. That's the thing with resin that you have to be.
I've got gloves and a mask.
Yep.
So I'm ready.
Well, I hope you have a mask after the past year.
Wow. I have a mask whose job it is to be right here, as opposed to the masks that go with me whenever I go to the store. But yeah. Okay, well, cool. Well, thank you very much for joining me today. I really appreciate
no problem.
it. Pinch hitting. I don't know what our status will be next week. We might be talking about something else, you and me. It depends.
You know me, I'm always free.
That works. I appreciate that. I really appreciate you helping me. And again, remind everybody that we are sponsored by Kieran Games, Geekway Homes, Shiny Garden, and your mom. Because we did that once, but I want to do it twice. So there we go.
Not that I know of, Donald.
Right.
I haven't done a resin plaster build, so I don't know. Now, if you're thinking like model trains, where you have your scenery as plaster and then buildings you can do in the resin, yes.
Once they're cured, they can do anything you want.
Once they're cured is the biggest issue.
Yeah, because once they're cured, you can stick them in plaster and it's fine. So, cool. Well, thank you again for joining me, and we will talk to you. I will probably see you tomorrow morning when I'm on my show when we do, and maybe Donald too, when we do a whole bunch of 3D modeling. Speaking of 3D modeling, because we're going to be building little teeny trucks and things like that for Bellatrix Rising. So until then, I've been Guy.
I've been Brent.
And this is Geek Tank.